You want an extra car seat to go with that?
Welcome back to Informavores. We got a quick article here for you before the top of the hour. Courtney Love is back in the news.
I didn't know she was still alive. That's
good. That's kind of unfortunate. Anyway, she's being sued over her Twitter remarks for insulting her fashion designer. She said of her fashion designer, "Oy vey, don't expletive with my wardrobe or you will end up in a circle of scorched earth, hunted till you're dead." It sounds kind of like a threat.
Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, so she's being sued for libel for, I guess she's being sued for libel. Alex, you're a journalist. You want to give a quick, what libel is?
Well, what's going on is it's a malicious threat is what's happened.
Right.
And she is liable, although normally, I mean, in most scenarios, it has more to do with an insult, slander.
Yeah.
Usually when these kind of lawsuits happen, it's more related to slander. And it just, I don't know. This is just rather ridiculous.
You have to bear with me. My law is pretty rusty from last year. But basically there's 4 parts to a libel case.
Yeah.
There has to be a statement of defamatory nature, which that, I think, in your opinion, does that qualify as that? Is that a defamatory statement? I would agree.
I think
it's basically a threat. It has to be communicated, and as far as I know, Twitter is a public space. I think that is communicated enough for any judge or jury.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So it has to be defamatory, communicated, and then it has to actually cause damage. So that's going to be the kicker.
I'm gonna go ahead and say nobody cares what Courtney Love thinks.
Yes. See, that's where you're going to run into problems. And then the fourth is if you're a public figure, you have to, if it's more directed at a public figure, it has to be.
See, I don't know my designers.
Because,
I don't know my designers, so it depends how famous of a designer this guy is.
Well,
because
if Courtney Love is your model.
Well, if he's super famous, I mean, besides that, then he really doesn't have much because people are going to be criticizing your work all the time.
Yeah, but the fourth part though is if it's directed at a public figure,
and this is more of a threat.
Yeah.
Be hunted on scorched earth.
Yeah, it was weird. But if it's directed towards a public figure, it has to be meant to cause problems. Like I said, the third part I think is going to be where you're going to run into problems. You have to quantify how much damage that one statement did. And that's where a lot of these libel and slander suits, lawsuits get hung up. That and the freedom of speech issue. I don't know if how much business are you really going to lose? Does Courtney Love really have that much of a following?
No.
I see.
No.
Here, you keep talking.
It's an answer. My answer is
I'm gonna
no.
look up. I'm gonna see how many followers she has on Twitter because.
All right, well, go ahead. But I don't really think so because the only time you see her, I mean, she's popped up on some Comedy Central roasts.
Exactly.
But otherwise, when do you see her? When she pops up on those, she just shows up to be a joke. I mean, that's just my opinion of her, but I think that's rather ridiculous. I'm not really sure how do you measure, people would have to go up to him and say, I'm not going to buy your wardrobe because Courtney Love insulted it, wouldn't they?
It looks like she deleted her account.
Wouldn't they, though? Wouldn't they have to go up? How do you measure how much damage this comment has done, especially with dresses and things like that? Because it's not like if you're a high designer, you have that much volume going out. Usually, when it comes to at least the celebrities purchasing your stuff, like a Beverly Hills store, I don't get the interpretation that there's a lot of volume as much as the prices of each thing is ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know. See, that's going to be a huge problem.
I just don't.
And I just think that I don't think this should be
there's not a case here.
I don't think there's a libel case. You could make a legitimate threat, like a little legitimate case about threats. Like, I don't know, again, I'm rusty with my law, but I think you could probably, I don't know what you could do, but that sounds pretty threatening. I think that they're going to get hung up on the price.
I'm sure there's a case there, but there's not a case for the traditional libel. I think that there's something else that we're just missing.
She's just trying to stick her nose out there.
Neither of us remember law.
But I don't know. I just thought it was really funny that she started with oy vey. That was just, really? Come on, Courtney.
Yeah. All right. We're going to do a PSA and go to a song, and we will be back with, what should we open with? Well, we're going to tell you who Forbes thinks are the, well, not thinks, but who are the wealthiest dead people. All right, be back after this. All right, welcome back to Informavores. I'm Alex Schumann, and I'm here with my co-host, Marcus Rippentrop. Now, before we go back into some other topics, we thought we'd like to do lists at the top of our second hour, and Forbes just released a list of the richest dead celebrities, and I mean, it kind of coincides with our discussion earlier over Chris Farley. And coming in at number 1 is actually not Michael Jackson.
That
although
surprised me.
Yeah, it surprises most people, but it was a French fashion designer. And although I'm going to probably butcher his first name, it's Yves Laurent. And he brought in $350 million in the past year.
Sheesh.
Much of his estate was auctioned off at Christie's in February, which is where most of it comes from. But he died in June 2008. Now, coming in at number 2 is also very surprising. It is Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein. And they rank second with combined earnings of $235 million. For, of course, their famous musicals, Oklahoma, The King and I, all of those. And followed by that, then comes in Michael Jackson with he's really, really far behind the first two, but coming in at third at $90 million. Then Elvis Presley is fourth, and J.R.R. Tolkien is fifth. And then Charles Schulz, John Lennon, and Albert Einstein fill out parts of the rest of the top 10. So there's that list. And then, Marcus, would you like to take us in to the first topic of our second hour?
Yep. As we mentioned at the top of the first hour, the state of Iowa just might be a big fat liar. Every I think it's every month or so, open state departments are given lists, or the state's given lists of state agencies openings, and the money is allocated based on, how many people work there, how many openings are there, and how many people will eventually be. Anyway, it translates to how they get their money. A recent report found that more than 1,100 jobs are listed as vacant, and no one is trying to fill them. They've been vacant for months. Some of them
they're still
almost
getting
a year,
money.
But they're still getting money allocated on
jobs.
that, and the lawmakers are calling this a slush fund because they're increasing their budget by having these open positions and currently seeking nobody to fill them. Basically, the way that the distribution system of the money works is that they get their money allocated based on how many people are going to be working there, and then the directors have complete control over that excess money. Mm-hmm. So they can pad their budget. What they're doing is they're padding their budget with this extra money for these employees that are
some of these cuts might have not even been necessary.
Right. Well, we don't know how much it's going to be. I'm sure it's probably a significant amount, but I don't know if it would have been a lot. But
1,100 jobs.
1,100 jobs. I guess it is quite a bit of money, but
yeah,
you probably could have padded some of the lot. You wouldn't have to make such huge budget cuts. But anyway,
that's what I mean.
Do you think that the agency should be allowed to do this? Should they be allowed to keep these jobs open that are we're looking for somebody, but just nobody's met our qualifications yet?
Not because they need more. They want money for whatever other random thing. Mm-hmm. I completely disagree with they should not be able to do this. They should only get the money to pay the people who work there, not get money for phantom employees. I think that's ridiculous.
So you're saying
it's a government budget. It is people's money that the government is taking. Why is it necessary for these individuals to have a little extra cash in their department? Because if they need the money, tell the state, tell the governor, whatever, just go to the legislature and try and have them allocate you money for that. Because if it's actually necessary, if it's actually doing something good for the state, why do you have to have a fake phantom employee to get the money that you need?
Well, you run into problems because a lot of these were previous positions, people that were laid off or people they haven't met yet. How do you regulate
people they haven't met yet?
Or people they haven't hired yet? Wow, I don't know where that came out of left field. Sorry. How do you regulate these agencies and tell who is actually not found the correct person for the position and who's holding it open to pad their budget? How do you go about policing that? Like if you were in charge, hypothetically, I know you're not actually, but
well, I don't know because where it gets sticky is I think you'd have to have just a time limit, but on when the position has to be filled. Although the only problem is then you run into getting good quality employees,
right?
And as opposed to just quantity and bringing in people to fill a hole. So it's a matter of, I don't know why you couldn't just do a budget freeze, not give the money for that until the job is found, but leave the money in the state budget. Heaven forbid we ended up with a surplus, something. So then when these massive economic downfalls happen, we're not in a terrible situation.
So would you say then receive the money? I don't know how often they meet to get their new budgets, if it's a monthly thing or 6 months. So what you're saying is basically give them money for what they have.